now going to be doing a lesson on Hebraic friendship. So we're continuing in 1 Samuel 18 or 17, 18, right?
18.
1 Samuel 18. And we'll be going from verse 1 through 16. We covered a little bit of it last week, but what I want to do this week is kind of dive more into depth because we were outdoors and we didn't have all the resources to really give you guys a really good look at the friendship between David and Jonathan and how it is a template for what friendship should look like Hebraically. What we've been trying to focus on in traveling and in teaching Hebrew letters and words is giving you a foundation, but now we're moving into how to apply these into community. And so in order to live out community, we have to know the steps of things. If we look at friendship as we've experienced it in our modern construct, it has different definitions based upon who you're friends with, what you think friendship is, what you want out of friendship, but Yah has an actual way that he wants our friendships to look in a Hebraic sense. So we're going to look at that today. So we're going to start at 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 1, and we'll just work our way from there. And I have some steps of friendships and what they should look like so that at the end we can kind of evaluate the kind of friendships we have and see if they actually fit into what Yah is trying to cultivate when he gives us friends. All right, so 1 Samuel 18, verse 1 says, "And it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul," this is King Dauid, or not king yet, but Dauid at the time, "that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul." We spoke briefly about that last week.
I gotta move the camera up.
Okay. We spoke briefly about that last week and what it meant for him to love him as his own soul. And we talked about how Europeans have perverted and misconstrued the love of David and Jonathan. If you've ever done any research on the friendship of David and Jonathan, you'll learn that a lot of people think they're homosexuals. Like it's a literal thing. And that comes from a European idea of what love and friendship is. If you know anything about the Greek and Roman culture, a lot of their statues and things depict homosexual relationships with men. So to say love, it would have to be something that would be physical and not something that was ordained by Yah. So we're going to actually learn what Yah was trying to do with David and Jonathan as well today. But to love him was Jonathan carrying out or being evoked by Yah to see David, like Leviticus 19:18 says. So let's look at that more. Leviticus 19 and 18. Let me pull up. And for this one, we're using the MySword Bible app, so it might look a little different from the normal, Bible Hub passage. So Leviticus 19 and 18. And it says, "Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahuwah." So when you see David and Jonathan, and if you've done any study on who Jonathan was, Jonathan is the son of Saul. David had been anointed as king by Samuel in the previous chapter. And literally, bear no grudge or avenge of your people. So Jonathan knew Torah. This kid, at the time, was a kid. Jonathan was a grown man. Jonathan was a man of war, which means he'd been fighting previous chapters with his dad, over 20. David was not a man of war, so he was under 20. So this is a younger man coming. He had killed this giant. He steps in the house, tells the story, and instead of him being jealous or saying, "Oh no, this guy is going to win the hearts of the people and he's going to take over," Jonathan does something completely different. Jonathan literally submits to the will of Yah and was like, "Okay, Yah's doing something here." So it says he loved him as his own soul, which means he carried out the charge in Leviticus 19:18. And to show it, Jonathan goes and makes a covenant with David. I'm going to go back to this word covenant, but I'm going to tell you what he does in the covenant. So Jonathan makes a covenant because he loved him, literally, as his own soul, but he loved him as Yah loved him as well. And he went, let me go up a little bit. Go back here for you guys. See if I can get back where it was. There we go. And if you go down to verse 4, Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him, and we went over these garments last week, so if you go to the last week's lesson, I go into a little more detail. Took off his robe and gave it to David, his garment, his sword, his bow, and his girdle. So that nobody even thought that he was resistant to what Yah was doing, and to show that he didn't bear a grudge for what Yah was doing, seeing that this person was now anointed, he went up against the champion of the Philistines. He goes and he gives up his everything that was about him, his kingship, his royalty, his will to fight, and literally hands it over to this kid at the time. And while we don't necessarily understand it on the surface in our culture, because we come from a Western culture, it would have been understood by everybody that saw it. Like, what the heck? Did he just? Absolutely. So let's look at what a covenant is. It says, then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. So let's look at this word, covenant. In Hebrew, a covenant is a barit. So it's bet, resh, yod, tav. And it comes from the root word, a couple of root words, but the first one is bara. And I'll put that one in a pictograph. Bet, resh, it's that man that always comes out, ooh, something happened to him.
He had a rough
You got punched.
It's always a joke, and I cannot. Okay, that's better. He had a flat tire. Bet, rush, and hay.
Gonna take art classes.
Right. So bet, resh, hay is the root for that. And the word for barit means a covenant, a pledge, an alliance, a treaty, an agreement. Now, if anybody knows anything about war, family, hood, the Godfather, you don't ever make a treaty outside of your family, right? It's like, that's like treason in a lot of ways. But when David came in, Jonathan literally was really willing to risk everything to be on Yah's side because he saw something. So even though he was Saul, wasn't gonna have it. He knew how his father was. He was willing to risk it all to go into covenant with what Yah was doing with David. And so he literally makes an agreement with him, and we'll find out a little later what that agreement was. He makes an agreement with him to literally be with him. And so that no matter what happens, I'm for you. Just always know that. When it comes down to my dad, when it comes down to the people that are fighting with my dad, to his servants, I'm with you because Yah's with you. Okay, so a covenant is a divine ordinance with signs or pledges. The reason why he did the sword and the robe and the garment and the bow is because in order for a covenant to be instituted, there has to be something that shows what's being done with the covenant. So this wasn't just a covenant of killing animals and splitting the animals and walking in between them, or just sitting down to a feast and having peace. It wasn't a covenant of peace. It was literally a covenant of, I literally made myself vulnerable before you. And if I don't uphold this end of this covenant by literally protecting you, what are you saying? I'm going to protect you with my influence. I'm going to protect you with my might. I will protect you against anybody else. I'm going to cover you as long as you're here because God's with you. So he gives him all those garments to show him the level of commitment he has. And then if I don't do that, you can then use all those things against me to kill me. You can use that bow. You can use that sword. You can use the influence you have amongst the people, like, against me. And if you've read through the chapter, I'll just give a little, spoiler alert. Later on, that's literally their conversation. He goes and tells him, look, don't forget me. Don't forget my children. You're getting ready to leave, but make sure that you remember our covenant. You got me, I have you. Right? Okay, so the idea of the covenant was, it was instituted through a sacrifice of choice. But in this sense, Jonathan is sacrificing himself. It was deeper than just a simple sacrifice of lambs and goats and bulls. He was like, no, I'm the sacrifice if I uphold this into this covenant. Yah deal with me, and me also if I don't fulfill all that I said I was going to do. So the picture of this is making an independent agreement. He made an agreement independent of his father, his father's influence. He literally made an agreement between him and Yah. All right. So then it goes on and it says, let me go back to the scripture. It says, and Jonathan stripped him of his robe that was upon him and gave it to David, and his garment, even to his sword and his bow and to his girdle. And David went out whithersoever Saul sent him and behaved himself wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. David dealt wisely. Off the bat, most people think wise, they think wisdom, like chokmah, right? In this sense, it's not the word wisdom like that. It's the word for with discretion. Mm-hmm. He had to be very, very careful about how he did everything because of the position he was in. He knows he's anointed. He knows he's going to be the next king. He also knows that there's a king. He also knows that the king is a little loopy too. Mm-hmm. And he's crazy. And he's a bad dude. And he can kill you. And so the word here is the word, and we see it a couple of different ways spelled, but for all intents and purposes, today I'm going to spell it with a summit. Let me erase this. I mean with a shin, a sin. So it's shin, kaf, lamed. You might see it spelled with a summit, but we're going to use the S sound in the shin, and I went into that a little bit when we were doing the word study at the women's thing about the difference between the sin and the shin, so you can go back to that. That was a video on discretion. Okay, because we already kind of covered this. So discretion is the ability to consider a situation with comprehension in order to be successful or prosperous. Okay? So shin, kaf, lamed. Literally to separate something. What did I put?
No, I'm looking.
Oh, okay. To literally separate something and to deal the hand in a direction properly. And so as a young man, through Torah, and I'll prove that to you, David had learned how to deal in discretion. Because discretion was what was going to keep him alive in Saul's house. Because Yah was going to continue to increase David. So he had to deal in discretion. Jonathan also had to deal in discretion in how he worked and interacted with David, both inside of his father's home and out on the battlefield, because he had made allegiance to him. But one of the things that happened was that it was like rebellion for righteousness. He didn't rebel in the sense like we would rebel. We'd be like, you know what, forget it. I'm out of here. David and I are going to build our own castle, and I'm going to become king, and I'm going to give him the... No. I'm going to go with Yah. And sometimes going with Yah can seem rebellious, but he constantly reconfirmed to his father that I'm for you, Dad. Like, as long as you're who you are, I have you. But at the same time, but I'm also going to protect him because he's next. And he never got those two crossed up. Even when David left, Jonathan didn't leave and go out into En-Gedi and all those places like David did. He visited him. But he did not leave his father's side because honor was huge. So he found that balance between honoring his father, but also being for Yah. And that's something that I think a lot of us deal with in this walk, because we have this split devotion sometimes. Yes, my parents raised me, they were this to me, but now I'm for Yah. So how do I balance both honoring this person and being for them, but also being for Yah? And it was this constant dialogue, and we'll see it in the coming weeks, where Jonathan would remind his father, like, hey, I'm for you, and this is what Torah says I'm supposed to do, and isn't this how you raised me to deal? So I'm just doing exactly what you told me to do. And then he would be for Yah. Like, spin it back around. And his father was like, you know what, you're right, I am smart. So there was that thing. And so, but David in dealing wisely. So let's see in a lot of ways, the wisdom of David. I'll give you the verses because we're going to move into this Hebraic friendship. Psalm 101 and 2. Deuteronomy 29 and 9. Psalm 75 and 2. And Psalm 32, 7 through 9. Ari, I can hear you.
Straight on the video.
She's going in on James. Okay. So what we're going to look at, now that we've seen that Saul was honored by Jonathan, but then there was this split devotion to David, right? And it will actually even say split, it was a whole devotion to what Yah was doing through David. So we're going to look at true covenant friendship. And in the coming weeks, we'll go deeper into the character development of Jonathan and Saul and David and this, thing that's getting ready to happen when the story climaxes and we get the birth of what Yah wanted from all of them. So true covenant friendship, what was it, or what's different between Jonathan and David's friendship and a lot of the friendships that we experience nowadays? Anyone? Do we ever, I don't think in my growing up I had friends like that.
I think Jonathan was loyal to David unto death.
Literally.
And
Yes.
He would die for him.
Yeah. Have you ever had a friend, high school,
Yeah.
15, 16, 17, 18,
You didn't know that you would die for them?
20? I think some of us would
30.
probably die with them by doing something stupid.
Right.
But-
Not intentionally.
No,
I'm not jumping in front of the bullet.
Right. Have you
I got a friend.
you got friends like that? And so that is something, when you get friends like that, that's rare. Because a lot of times when we make friends for our own benefit. And it's not necessarily for a greater goal or a greater good or who Yah's placed in our life. And the friends that we do make for that reason, they tend to stay with us throughout our whole life. But those friends that come in and come out, oh, this is my clubbing friend. And this is my work friend. And this is my, you have that one person. And that's like literally your companion on a particular journey. So what Yah wants for us in friendship is something very deep. And it's very, very similar to what he wants for us in marriage. And I know we don't think of those two things like that because we only cultivate one side of who we are, but that portion of who we are as friends, that has to extend out also. Remember, David had wives.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan was married. Jonathan had children, right? So that existed, but that's not even highlighted when Yah's dealing with them. David makes a statement at one point after Jonathan dies in 2 Samuel, and he says that Jonathan's love was better than the love of women. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's super deep because most people only aspire to have pretty much
Sex.
right. It's a sexual relationship. I was trying to find another way to say it. Right. There's no other way to say it. So even if what he was saying is the way I connected with him was deeper than what people aspire to do in that marriage covenant relationship. Because if you know anything about David married Jonathan's sister. And she was a handful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that relationship failed him in a lot of ways. But where that relationship failed, David had that relationship with Jonathan, which actually the whole purpose of relationship in general, in any construct, is to show you Yah's heart.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you have in your life that's showing Yah's heart so that you can experience Yah face to face? Because we don't, in that sense, if we see Yah face to face, we die. So how do we experience the height of who Yah is? It's with one another. That's why Leviticus 19:18 is so significant. He's saying, love this person as yourself. Like that's a high calling. And he's not talking about he's talking about marriage, but he's talking even higher, like literally the people that are not that person who you exchange or have sexual relationship with, or you're having children with, or you love because of this engagement. But it's literally people outside of that where really you don't have anything to benefit but what Yah has brought together in friendship. There's no, that exchange is in platonic, I hate to use that word, but it's literally based in concrete things that are not, in a lot of ways, sex can cloud your mind on how you feel about somebody, but in friendship, it's a constant choice every day to pursue that relationship, where with marriage, sometimes marriages stay together just because I made that commitment to stay in this. Where friendship, anybody can leave and not be friends at any time, and a lot of people still do that. So I'm going to give you 6 steps or 6 things that were highlighted in David and Jonathan that show what a true covenant friendship is. And it's going to teach us how to look for friends, in a lot of ways how to get rid of friends, and how to see what kind of friend we may or may not be being to someone else. Okay? The first one is nurturing a spiritual bond. David moved into a place where he would be in conflict, but Yah gives him an unlikely ally, and that's the son of Saul. David literally moves into Saul's house. What worse place to be for David than literally living in Saul's house, because Yah knew what was going to happen, but Yah gives him an ally in Jonathan. And so he immediately nurtured a spiritual bond between David and Jonathan. Jonathan would be what I would consider like a big homie, right? He was like the more experienced. He had been on the battlefield. He was going to help him be who he was supposed to be, right? And nurture him, whatever it took. He was willing to invest that. Okay, so Yah gives us family connection, deep spiritual bond, divine connection, and one of the things we are not supposed to do is resist that process. Sometimes because we've been so so broken by family relationships, by relationships, and by friendship that we were resistant to who Yah is putting in our life for us to bond with, because we start thinking through all the things that are going to go wrong, right? So Yah is telling us don't resist the process. David could have been so paranoid about Jonathan being his friend, like, oh, you saw some, you playing. He's trying to get close to me because you want to see. That wasn't the case. He recognized that Jonathan had the same ruach and spirit guiding him that he had. And so he let Yah knit him, if you will. So the first one is nurturing a spiritual bond, and the admonition is let Yah knit you to your people. Let Yah do it. We constantly seek people because we want the people we want, but let Yah put the people that he has for you, and then he'll do the rest. Number 2, sacrificial love. Jonathan, and he mentioned this, risked his life to help David, literally. And 1 Samuel 20:33, when Jonathan didn't show up to the new moon dinner, Saul took a javelin to kill.
When David didn't show up.
When David didn't show up to the new moon dinner, Saul took a javelin. Saul was bad with that javelin, and was literally threw it to kill Jonathan. So Jonathan was aware of his father. He was, he was like, well, he probably won't be mad, but I'm gonna risk my life. He's mad. Let him take it out on me, and he was literally gonna kill him. So Jonathan was really willing to risk his life because he believed so much in what Yah was gonna do with David. Okay, so he believed in Yah's mission for his life. The Mashiach actually echoes this in John 15:30. Says, "Greater love hath no man than if he would lay down his life for his friend." That's deep because, see, we think friend, we're like, I'm not dying for a friend. But if you think of your friends the way that the Father has put them in your life, and if they're those people, then it's worth it because they have something that they're carrying out that you're like, look, if I have to die for this to keep going, then I'm willing to do that. The world teaches independence, but Scripture teaches interdependence. And this is for mutual benefit. Relationships that we are trained to go in, we want to say, well, I need you to do the same exact thing for me. Or I need you to, and it's not necessarily like that. In Scripture, it always goes in equity and not equality. Right? So what I may need may not be what you need. And what I may need may seem so insignificant to you. Right? I may like, hey, can you just shoot me a text and just check on me? And you may think I need you to come out of my house every day, and well, that's what I would want. And Yah's like, no. When you get into a friendship, you see how to meet that person's needs. And what may seem small to you may seem big to them. And it comes with learning people and learning one another, because what Yah wants us to do in friendship is to look after and be a part of the experience with the person. Interestingly, if you go to the screen, the word for friend and the word for evil are the same word. Crazy, right? Resh, ayin. So it's literally the head and the eye, right? So they're to watch the experience, or to watch, or to keep your eye on, or to watch something, right? So it could be for good or for bad. It could be for positive or for negative, because you have some people who watch you to prey on you, right? They watch you to find your weak point. Where you have other people who are watching you and are keeping an eye on you to protect you. Okay, so we're going to read through.
How's that pronounced?
Ra. We're going to read through, and I have Sirach chapter 6. I'm not huge on a bunch. I don't normally use a bunch of, I wouldn't call them extra biblical because they were in the Bible. But I don't, can you?
Pull it up in here.
Yeah. Me having a Wi-Fi.
Oh, I had it up there.
Huh?
Oh, you want to get on your Wi-Fi?
Whoa. I need it. Sirach chapter 6, and I'll kind of give if you click over your pause, read it from there. Sirach chapter 6 deals with friendship. And it literally calls every single person, actually Lauren highlighted this, every single person in that passage friend. Even though we'd be like, that's not a friend. and that's not a friend, but they're all friends. So it shows you the contrast of Ra, if you will, when it's dealing with friendship. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Sirach chapter 6, starting at verse 1, it says, "Instead of a friend, become not an enemy, for thereby thou shalt inherit all ill name, shame and reproach. Even so shall a sinner that hath a double tongue. Extol not thyself in the counsel of thine own heart, that thy soul be not torn in pieces as a bull straying alone. Thou shalt eat up thy leaves, and lose thy fruit, and leave thyself as a dry tree. A wicked soul shall destroy him that hath it, and shall make him to be laughed to scorn of his enemies. Sweet language will multiply friends, and a fair-speaking tongue will increase kind greetings. Be in peace with many, nevertheless have but one counselor of 1,000. If thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. For some man is a friend for his own occasion, and will not abide in the day of thy trouble. And there is a friend who, being turned to enemy in strife, will discover thy reproach. Again, some friend is a companion at the table, and will not continue in the day of thy affliction. But in thy prosperity he will be as thyself, and will be bold over thy servants. If thou be brought low, he will be against thee, and will hide himself from your face. Separate yourself from your enemies, and take heed of your friends." Interestingly, the worst advice anybody ever gave was, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Right.
Absolutely not. He's like, no, keep your enemies away from you.
Right.
And even watch your friends, right? He says, "A faithful friend is a strong defense, and he that hath found such a one hath found a treasure." Literally, that's almost the same exact phrase that's used when it talks about finding a wife. He that finds a wife finds a good thing. He that finds a friend finds a treasure, right? He says, "Nothing doth countervail a faithful friend, and his excellency is invaluable. A faithful friend is the medicine of life, and they that fear YHWH shall find him. Whoso feareth YHWH shall direct his friendship aright. For as he is, so shall his neighbor be." Leviticus 19:18. Literally, as yourself. "My son, gather instruction from thy youth up, so shalt thou find wisdom till thine old age. Come unto her as one that ploweth and soweth. Wait for her good fruits, for thou shalt not toil much in laboring about her, but thou shalt eat of her fruits right soon. She is very unpleasant to the unlearned. He that is without understanding will not remain with her." So you can see that contrast of David being wise and dealing wisely, and then Yah being a friend and fearing Yah. And he says, "She will lie upon him as a mighty stone of trial, and he will cast her from him ere it be long. For wisdom is according to her name, and she is not manifest unto many. Yet hear my son, receive my advice, and refuse not my counsel. And put thy feet into her fetters, and thy neck her chain. Bow thy shoulders, and bear her, and be not grieved with her bonds. Come unto her with thy whole heart, and keep her ways with all thy power. Search and seek, and she shall be made known unto thee. And when thou hast got hold of her, let her not go. For at the last thou shalt find her rest, and thou shalt be turned to thy joy. Then shall her fetters be a strong defense for thee, and her chains a robe of glory. For there is a golden ornament upon her, and her bands are purple lace. Thou shalt put her on as a robe of honor, and shalt put her about thee as a crown of joy. My son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught. And if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent. If thou love to hear, thou shalt receive understanding. If thou bow thy ear, thou shalt be wise. Stand in the multitude of thy elders, and cleave unto him that is wise. Be willing to hear every good godly discourse, or Yahweh discourse, and let not the parables of understanding escape thee. And if thou seest a man of understanding, get thee betimes unto him, and let thy foot wear the steps of his door. Let thy mind be upon the ordinances of YHWH, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart, and give thee wisdom at thine own desire." So when we see in David, I read that whole thing because I'm going to actually touch a little bit more on David and how he was able to navigate through that space. Jonathan, as a friend, was one of those reasons why. But then the wisdom that he got literally from Torah was another reason why. In Psalm 59, so wrote it
I
down.
have
It was. I think it was 59. You know, the Psalm 59 and 57. It was 59. David literally goes through, and the psalm is literally about when Saul sends the men to his house to capture him. And he has this whole discourse about what's going on, but the whole time he's praising Yah. Because he's like, I know you're my refuge and my defense, and you set up already for me refuge in this current moment. Okay, so that was 2, sacrifice, sacrificial love. 3, encouragement, which goes along with the friendship and wisdom. Jonathan seeks out David in 1 Samuel 23 and 16 to build him up. Friendship should speak life into you. Your words should propel your friend into their destiny. So Jonathan literally comes to remind David, like, I know it's rough, you're hiding in caves, let me tell you what's going on, let me brief you on everything that's happening, but be encouraged, because what's coming after this is much greater than what you're experiencing right now. And so knowing and seeing your friend for who they are in Yah, that's not something that's always the thing. We sometimes let our friends stay in this space, and so immediately it makes you give up some friends. If you have friends who you cannot talk to about who they are in Yah, then they're not your friends. Mm-hmm. So a lot of women, even in our, especially in our culture, maybe not so much in Torah, but just in our culture in general, we got the gay friends, we got all these people where we allow them, we say we love them, but we allow them to stay in that place. If you can't speak into that, to where that person's supposed to be in Yah, should be your friend.
right.
Because you're doing them a disservice by even being their friend. Where you literally have this person, like for a lot of us, who know better. And then you won't even share with that person knowing that the eternal end for them is something great. Mm-hmm. And then you have friends who, I mean, I use that because I'm talking about hairdressers. I don't know why. I always go get the hair done. But you even have friends who literally are waiting for you to just speak up.
Right.
They trust you. They're following you, and you don't even know it. But you won't take the extra step and then just like share with them where you are in your walk. Like, I know something's different. Yeah, no, but it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. They're waiting for you to stand up and be that light for them, so that they can stand up and be who they're supposed to be in Yah. Yah doesn't by happenstance put people in our paths. He does it on purpose. We woke up on purpose so that we would shed that light to those people. Okay. Number 4, your friends should protect you and pray for you. While many never have to fight for our friends physically or even die, there is always room to cover them spiritually. Sometimes the closest people to us can sense the enemy targeting us before we can. Your friends know you. Something off.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Right, you good? And that's the place to step in. But you have to be close enough to a person and in close enough relationship to recognize that. If you're not willing to be in that kind of relationship with a person, don't call a person your friend. Acquaintance, associate. That's not your friend. Because your friend, you're literally willing, okay, I'm willing to cover you in that, where maybe you don't even see it. You're fighting, we're not going to take out swords, not to fight back to back, but I'm willing to spiritually war with you over whatever it is, whether it's you, whether it's something you're going through, long-term, short-term, whatever it is. So, but, and the final thing is, in that, sometimes we see things and we have to be able to speak truth in love. Tell the truth. I love you, I'm going to tell you, and then we're just going to leave it there. Okay, number 5, part of friendship that Jonathan and David had, confidentiality. That's huge. Because David had to really, really trust Jonathan. I'm confiding in you, and your dad is trying to kill me.
Right.
Right. Confidentiality comes from the word chasah, and it means to take refuge. Are your friends a refuge? Right? Do you go to your friends, and do they just, misery loves company, and then you start low and you get lower? It's not a friend. In a friend, you should find refuge. Part of that is also a vault. I should be able to deposit things there that never leave. Right? So it's a place of support and trust. So we read Sirach, and one of the verses in Sirach, it says, friends that carry quarrels. It talked about the idea that you'll have some friends where they're friends, and you share stuff with them, and they can't wait to carry the things that you share with them to your destruction.
Right.
They're like, let me carry the quarrel outward so people can know what's going on the inside. Not friends. Sometimes we need to vent in a safe space. Sometimes we need to process our pain. Sometimes we need to be vulnerable and not worry about our weakness being exposed. Are you this kind of friend? And do you have these kind of friends? If that's something you have to worry about in a friendship, that's not your friend.
Right.
If you can't be vulnerable, then that's not your friend. Associate, maybe. Right? Acquaintance, maybe, but it's not your friend. Period. Confidentiality is huge because sometimes it's that sharing of something that allows somebody the space to pray with you about it and for it to never leave that space. And sometimes things do have to be verbalized and expressed outwardly so that you can grow in that space. But if you never feel comfortable, you'll never grow. All right. Number 6, and it's the last one, harbor no jealousy. This goes for both men and always go for both men and women because this was all a relationship with 2 men, right? Harbor no jealousy. Jonathan could have immediately had a grudge. That first part of Leviticus 19:18, don't avenge, don't revenge your kinsman. He could have immediately been ticked off. Why? I'm supposed to be king. My dad is king. And Jonathan, we said this, and Maura and I talked about this, Jonathan would have been a great king. He had the same exact ruach as David. He was for Yah. He was not afraid. He was walking in truth and in Torah. He was a good man. He was upright. So he could have immediately been like, right? Like, no, that wasn't his attitude. David was taken, or better yet, put in a place to receive the kingdom. And it was literally being taken from Saul over Jonathan and being given into a whole other family.
That's the thing.
So an acknowledgement of purpose and place in our friends' lives is imperative. That's super imperative. It could be you, but it's not. And so then look into why God chose the person that he chose. Jonathan, before those feelings rose up, Jonathan placed himself in the position as a servant to Yah, not David, to Yah, and then relinquished all of his rights. He had to come to the conclusion that the very kingship that was supposed to be mine is not mine, it's Yah's anyways. So Yah can put anyone he wants to put in that place, and as a servant and subject of Yah, I'm going to support whoever that is. It's like from Wakanda when he goes when Killmonger became king, and what was the warrior? Can't think of her name, but she told Lupita, I can't think of her name either. She said, "I'm loyal to the throne,
Right?
no matter who sits on it."
Yeah.
Which was a very, very noble thing. Even though this guy was crooked, he won fair and square, right? And it was the same thing with Jonathan, where it's like, even though my father sits on it, I'm not loyal to my father. I'm loyal to the seat because Yah is putting a person in that seat as a representative for him. So I'm loyal to the seat. So whether it's me on it or somebody else on it, I have to be loyal to that person because it's for the greater community. Right? So Jonathan was for Yah, and because Yah was with David, he didn't see it as being less or under, but being with the direction of Ruach. So he wasn't under David, he was with Yah's will. And one of the things that happened with David, and it's in the text, it says that David walked among the people and they loved him, right? Because he was the right kind of king. He wasn't sitting up under a pomegranate tree somewhere just hiding out in the palace. He was amongst the people, and so he was seen as equal among the people as well. He was Yah's chosen, but he was amongst the people. So it was a person that everybody could vibe with. So it didn't seem like a strange thing for David to be for Jonathan when he was for the people as well. True love is true love in friendship and just in general is for those we love to succeed. And that's difficult because in our culture, if somebody succeeds, it's almost trained in them to forget about who was with them when you see it with athletes and other people, it just happens. You forget about your community, so you come from, you have a small remnant who don't, but a lot of people do. It's like, I just want to get away from there. Where Hebraically, if one of us make it, we all make it. We all do. It's for the greater of all of them. So everything that's done, Hebraically, is done for each and every person because it's paving the way in a lot of ways for us all to be on that platform. If you have a righteous king, you have a righteous nation, right? So in choosing David, you're like, I'm for him because if he does exactly what he's doing now, he stays with Yah, then the people will be on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And what greater thing than for the people to stay on the path with Yahweh. So, in this time of day, we have to be both David and Jonathan. Because, you know, sometimes we want to pick which one we want to be.
Yeah.
I'd like to be David. Or I'd like to, no, it's both. Because you don't know what side you have to be on. There were times where David had before Jonathan. And in the end, literally, David ends up doing the greater service to Jonathan and his household. Because then Jonathan's son is counted in
Right.
with David.
Right.
Right, so in the end, it actually balances out. It was about reciprocity for mutual benefit, but ultimately for the kingdom as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about friendship, and next week we'll move on and we'll read through and cover the rest. There's some interesting things that transpired between David and Jonathan and Saul. We have to keep that in mind because I think that's a lot of the space where we're lacking in the community. Everybody's seeking out marriage. Let me get married. Let me have 6 wives. Let me have 10 wives. and terrible friends though. So then the community is crumbling in a lot of ways because we're so focused on our bounty or building up our name or our way, and we're not thinking about how, as a community, we should be operating so that people can see us. Kimber used to always use this verse, Yosh. The one where he says, how will people know that we love Yah? And it's how, what verse is that? It's by our love one to another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's talking relational. That's talking as a community. That's not talking about how people know that you love Yah, because how you love your wife. That's part of it. But how will he know that we're the nation that we're supposed to be when we start operating in Hebraic friendship? They'll know who we are when we start caring about each other's lives. Like, not Black Lives Matter, not just Black Lives Matter, but literally like this nation's lives matter. From the oldest to the youngest. When we start taking care of our own, when we start respecting our elders, when we start honoring and obeying the authorities that have been put over us within our community, right? Then people go, that was a people destroyed. And there's something about that people that's changing, where we begin to care about one another, not waiting for somebody else to do it. Not even in a lot of ways waiting on Messiah to come, and we should do it now. You practice for eternity, right? You start caring about one another now. You start perfecting the process now. You start making covenanted friendships where you are literally held accountable for how you interact and how to get back on the right path. If you don't have friends holding you accountable to Yah's covenant first, and then choosing to link up with you to keep you on that path, then you don't need them as friends. If they're pulling you in any direction outside of Yah's will, let them go. I don't care if they call themselves Hebrew. I don't care if they wear fringes. I don't care if they wear head wraps. Absolutely not, because the ultimate goal is to literally push toward Yah. If you're yoked with somebody, if they turn their head, guess what? You get pulled too. So unyoke and then wait for Yah to put you in the yoke with who he wants you to be with.
John 13:35.
John 13:35. And then I'm done. I'm on a hot seat. So I'll take questions since there's people here. 13:35. By this shall all men. Let me just go back one. 34. A new commandment I give unto you. Not a new, a renewed. I'm giving you back the same thing I've already told you. That ye love one another as I have loved you, and that ye also love one another. It says it twice. But by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. Questions?
Well, that cuts off that stuff that we hear on the street corners
Definitely.
with
Right.
us,
Definitely.
you know, with ministry and anger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at this picture.
Mm-hmm.
These are the Edomites, and they took you and you need to straighten up, sister.
Right.
Take them pants
Right.
off. You
Oh,
know.
with the pants on. You're like,
Oh, hey. Yeah, that's crazy.
It takes all that off the table, because one of the things about being in a family is that I have to know how much you love me before you can really, I can even receive anything you have to say. So you can tell me you love me when you don't even care to know what I know or what I don't know. It would be much better to take people and say, okay, what do you know? Or where's your relationship? Or how are you serving the Father? We talked about this earlier with just saying, well, how is what you're doing right now benefiting the kingdom and your creator as the ultimate, because that's where it comes down to. You've been created, which means you're automatically in covenant. I didn't mention that in covenant. The very fact that you live in a place that was created by not you, you're in covenant to that creator. The very fact that you are alive, it puts you in covenant to the creator. So people are like, well, I don't believe it. You don't have to believe in him. You don't even have to like him, but you are in covenant. So you can line up to that covenant and receive the blessings of it, or you can be resistant to it and live turmoil because of that. But the very fact that somebody established something and created a space before you even had opportunity to interject your thoughts or beliefs or anything into it means that you will have to be loyal to me first. Those children, loyal to me first. Before you got here, everything was mine first. So that I get to tell you how to use it, how to function in it, and then now that you have a sister, you loyal to her first. Because she's the first person you have to interact with. Well, as a family of people, we have to first learn how to love each other. How can we say, oh, I love you, and it's like you cussed out your sister on the street? then what stops somebody else from doing that very thing? We couldn't fight in public. We couldn't fight, period. But you sure couldn't fight in public. Okay. You would get, oh my goodness. It was not a thing. Why? Mom was like, you don't have no friends with these friends. This is everything you have, period. If you can go out in the street and with somebody, you can't do it in here, you don't have any friends. You can't, absolutely, and the Father's the same way. How dare you? Can be friendly to everybody else. Oh, excuse me, sister. And then when you get around your own, it's cussing and fighting and strife and wouldn't shoot down. Oh, I'm just saying this, like this probably get the video flag. But you wouldn't shoot a Wasichu in the street at all. You wouldn't. You wouldn't do a drive-by in a Wasichu neighborhood, but you shoot up your own neighborhood. So then why do you think people don't respect and don't think that we love? Yeah. Right. People right now, people in Torah still shoot up in August. You'll find, you got camps fighting against camps. Literally fist fighting on the street, like against each other. But you wouldn't walk into one of the seminaries and fist fight nobody over line or something. See what I mean? It's like, oh, but you love Yah. Right? Oh, okay. You cussing out people online. Oh, but you love the Father. It's not evident. It's not evident. It has to show in a different way. You can have passion and zeal and do it tactfully.
That's it.
And in love. Definitely. Firefighters go into burning houses every day and save people. Because that's the argument. If you're in a burning house and the house is going down, how dare I say, come out? No. That's not what somebody's asking you to do, but people go into dangerous situations every day and save people. And nobody comes out traumatized because of it. Outside of the fire, but not because of the person saving them. Yeah. So we need to look at how we are approaching things. And it's not saying that it's supposed to be soft. I'm not asking anybody to do that, but there is a way to do it with discretion, like David dealt wisely. How do we deal wisely with Yah's children? Because it's his people. It's his people and his children. At the end of the day, even though we all look like adults, we're babies. We're fragile. And we literally, salvation is all we have. All we have is this truth and waking up. And after that, there's nothing. So how do we link and join with people in friendship and in community as our basis? Because remember, in our culture, everybody was sister and brother. You even have men call their wives sister, right? Because before I deal with you as my spouse, I have to see you how Yah sees you. I have to see how I want somebody to treat my sister, right? That is across the board. In Song of Songs, my sister, my lover. Sounds weird, right? But then when you think
not if you're from Arkansas.
But what he was saying is
not my family.
Establishing that you are my friend first. Because everything else is like icing on the cake. But what I have with you in this realm and what Yah has given us is so much, is heightened by him also allowing you to be mine and for me to care and look over you. Right?
Yeah. I was thinking about that with, is it John 15 where he says, you're my friend if you keep my commandments. And it's like, we can't be the friend of the Most High or be his friend and then not be friends of other people, because he says the greatest commandment is to love Yah, then love your neighbor. So if we're not loving our neighbor, then we can't even reach that level of friendship with him.
We should be showing people Yah's love. And that's a tall order. Because first we have to know Yah's heart.
Yeah.
That's
And his heart's in his word. So if you don't know his word, you don't know his heart. It gets a little difficult, right? So how do we show people Yah's heart? We are literally like walking, breathing ambassadors of how he has been trying to beckon and draw people. And in a lot of ways, people are pushing people away and confusing people and sharing things in their own power and their own might. And we're losing more than we're winning. It seems like, right? But people need to also know who to look for, and that's why I think those 6 are very important. Somebody's calling, I'm just trying to help you. Are you helping me like this, though? Because we don't need the other kind of help. I don't need to be helped to my own destruction.
Okay.
Right.
I don't need to yell at you. Can yell at me and be action.
Right. I'm
Because then I'm like,
PTSD. You gonna give me all stress? Yeah, you gonna trigger me. Now we fighting. Like,
I'm having an anxiety attack thinking about what you were saying right here on this phone.
so people shut down when you yell at them. Like
People do shut
they
down.
they don't respond well when people are yelling at them. Like they buff up and they
you become defensive. You do become defensive. And there is, like I said, sweet words or kind words win friends. Are you trying to win your brother? Are you trying to win a friend? Or are you trying to discourage a person? Because a lot of it seems like discouragement to me.
Oh my
Out of that trash can.